Now, our movies editor, Adrian Mack, around the office, he's the cool guy at the Georgia Strait. So there's a very cool event happening in Vancouver. It happens every July, called the Catalano Music Festival along West 4th Avenue. Celebrates local bands, and it attracts tens of thousands of people. Maybe it'll reach 100,000 this time. And so Adrian is here. He's written a cover story on the festival, one aspect of the festival, and he's here to tell us about it. What did you focus on, Adrian, in your article?
I focused on the reunion of the Poppy Family, which was a legendary Vancouver band from the late 60s. They had a couple of huge global smash hits, one of them called Which Way You Goin' Billy, which you've heard, whether you recognize the title or not, you've heard the song.
Can you sing a bar?
Yeah, Which Way You Goin', Billy, Can I Come Too? That one. And that was another big hit with a song called Where Evil Grows. But here's the thing about the Poppy Family. This is what's really interesting about the Poppy Family, is they're going to be joined on stage for this reunion show by some of the most iconic names in Vancouver's indie rock scene at the moment. And that includes John Collins and Kurt Dahl from the New Pornographers, Josh Wells and Amber Weber from Black Mountain and Lightning Dust, and also Ted Bois from Destroyer. And right there, those are three of the biggest bands Vancouver has produced in the last 10 years. So this is really big news, because I think, a lot of people have sort of dismissed the Poppy Family over the years as being quite lightweight, but they're not. And that's why these people they're very eager to play with the Poppy Family and get on stage with them. And they're very eager for the rest of Vancouver to know that this is a great band and that had a lot more depth than people realize.
Yeah, and I'm curious what the band members of these very popular contemporary indie bands are saying about the Poppy Family. Why does their music resonate so much, even today, almost 40 years later?
I think the answer to that is that the Poppy Family wrote songs that were deceptively sunny. But in fact, if you listen very closely, they're quite dark. They're lyrically quite depressed, and yet they're beautiful. They're wonderfully arranged. They come from the psychedelic era, but they're not heavy. The first album they put out is not a heavy psychedelic record. It's a very beautifully crafted pop record. It has more of a Burt Bacharach feel than anything. And I think that this generation of musicians that we're talking about, who came out of punk and have sort of, if you like, renounced heaviness, they've renounced loud guitars, they've renounced the simplicity of punk rock. They're much more into craft and songwriting, and the Poppy Family were exquisite songwriters, and they were great arrangers, and they understood how to use a studio. And so they produced this real world-class product that was good enough that they sold millions of records. And then sadly, it only really lasted for one album. But since then, they have been very much underappreciated, and I think that's why these guys from these bands want to do this. They want people to know.
One of the things I'm curious about is you interviewed Susan Jacks, who was a global celebrity who's kind of disappeared for decades, and maybe not disappeared, but certainly doesn't have quite the fame that she had. What was that like?
Well, it was thrilling for me because I love Susan Jacks and I love the Poppy Family. And I'm with those guys. I agree. This is a classic record, and it's been horribly underappreciated. And she has a truly magical voice. We all talked about that. Her old bandmates, who I also interviewed, talked about that. There's something very, very true and very sincere and very, very, her voice resonates. It's like Tammy Wynette, if you like. Maybe that's not the best example, but there's a certain kind of weepy quality to it. There's a cry in it, and you can't really listen to Susan Jacks without being moved. And she's a total natural. So meeting her was amazing for me. I think she's fantastic. And actually, you're right. She was very famous for quite a long time, and then she sort of ducked out of the music industry and became a very successful business person. But I think she told me that she enjoys nothing more than singing in front of an audience. I think this is a really big deal for her to do this again.
One of the interesting aspects of the Catalano Festival, it was actually created by a fellow named Grant McDonough at Zulu Records. Now Thomas Anselmi has gotten involved. What are they talking about when they look at what's coming this weekend?
They are. What are they talking about? They're talking about how well Catalano has done. I think for it, this is the third one, second one, or no, third one. The third one. I think everybody is really surprised at how at what a success it's been, and I think Grant and Tom certainly deserve an awful lot of credit for that. They have booked something like 50 of the best local bands into this festival.
John Donnelly is another person who's involved. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. He should be mentioned as well. But I mean, last year's was explosive. It was so good, and it was the same thing. I think there was 51 bands, some of the best bands in the city, and these guys really know their stuff, right? They know their poop from their shinola, if you like. So they're, you know, it's being curated very well by these guys. They know it, and I don't know. I think this year's going to be even bigger.
Well, thank you very much, Adrian. Yes, the Catalano Festival, it's set the bar high for business improvement associations across the city because this is actually put on by the West 4th Avenue Business Improvement Association, and it's one of the more stellar, exciting musical events of the year in Vancouver. So I hope you get a chance to see it. And thanks again, Adrian.
You're welcome.